Good evening. This is Real Talk with Yolanda, and today we're going to address PTSD and military sexual trauma. Another way to describe military sexual trauma is MST. Those are the acronyms for military sexual trauma. I want to address these particular areas because the PTSD is what I suffered from, as well as many other soldiers who have went to or have been deployed or have had one, two, or even three deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as others like prior Desert Storm. PTSD does not only affect military individuals who have been deployed to war. PTSD can come in various forms and it can develop at any time in someone's life, such as child abuse, rapes, anything of those natures. It consists of any form or any type of trauma. Okay, I suffered PTSD very early on, but never was diagnosed for it. As I became an adult and was subjected to domestic violence, I ended up with another form of PTSD. After that, I was deployed to Iraq, another form of PTSD, because upon my return from home from Iraq, I had difficulty sleeping. I had difficulty driving. I had difficulty being around large crowds, driving over, driving under or through the, what is that called? The viaduct, the overpass. I had difficulty doing that. I had difficulty driving, whether it was in a local residential area or on the highway, because I found myself avoiding potholes. I found myself avoiding any type of debris of any sort that were on the highways or even in the residential areas. The reason is because during our time in Iraq, we had to be very cautious not to drive over anything, drive near anything due to IEDs, and those are considered impoverished devices, electronic devices that oftentimes the Iraqis would create, develop, and have planned in certain areas while we were in Iraq. They would place these devices in places that you would not even expect for something like that to be. And of course, we all know that they place these type of devices and bombs attached to their children, their spouses, in the sake of Allah. So returning home was a huge adjustment, a huge adjustment. I was not the same person I was prior to being deployed to Iraq. I had no problems being around crowds prior to being deployed to Iraq. No problem whatsoever. I had no problem attending movie theaters when the line was long or the movie theater was crowded. I had no problem shopping in a grocery store when there were crowds. Rightfully so, I did prefer to shop when the stores were less customers. That was even before I went to Iraq, but that was the reason. I just prefer to either shop early in the morning when they had fresh items and new items placed on the shelves and fresh fruits and vegetables. That was my reason. However, upon returning from Iraq, it was no longer that reason. The reason then was because I felt uncomfortable attending or being around large crowds, fearing the unknown, not knowing what someone may do while I was amongst that crowd. That was the reason. It was just feeling uncomfortable. Then there began school shootings, so that did not make matters even any easier for those of us who returned from Iraq. It did not make it any easier because, if anything, it just made me more hyper vigilant, fight or flight type of deal, always staying on guard. And that has not stopped because we still had shootings. I believe we had school shootings up until what, last year or 2020? Yeah, last year, 2023. So anytime I hear about a school shooting and children being killed or children being injured or children being feared for their lives, that triggers something within me. It caused me to feel very uneasy, very uneasy. More and more, the way our world, society has become, it has truly made it very difficult for me to trust anyone that I meet or pretty much let my guards down. Honestly, even before Iraq, uh, I don't believe that we should have let our guards down. Even that's the same mentality I had before going to Iraq. But I did let down my guards prior to going to Iraq. Attending graduate school was not a cakewalk at all, at all. I always look forward to pursuing my education, my graduate degree, but it wasn't a cakewalk. I recall the first day in class, this particular professor, just because she had a son who were over there in Iraq, who he joined, he wanted to do the right thing. He wanted to make a difference. He wanted to do his American duty, whatever that is, to protect our country. While over there were individuals, selective individuals, who were allowed to speak to the media. And of course, these individuals, you never heard them say anything negative about being over there. You always heard soldiers standing in front of the cameras professing that we're doing such a great job over there. They're happy to be over there. They're happy to be part of history. To go and get Saddam Hussein. They believed they were doing a great thing. You never heard or you never saw a soldier standing in front of the camera talking to any of the journalists, the media of any or anyone saying anything negative. They chose who they wanted to place in front of the camera to downplay everything that was going on over there. They did not want America to know, they did not want the public to know that we were using metal pieces as protection to cover our vehicles. We were not prepared. Our vehicles were not prepared to be on the lines of fire, not being protected. However, those who came after us, after we left theater and returned to the States, the units thereafter that came behind us were well equipped and had the appropriate vehicles, protection around their vehicles. Why? Because word eventually got back that those of us who were deployed right after and soon after that 9/11 and soon after that other unit was ambushed, we went in right after that other unit was ambushed and those two young ladies were captured. Their vehicles were not protected, and neither was ours. But we did the best that we could while we were over there. We had nothing. When I say we had nothing, we had everything that was left over there. The shower trailers, running water. It was as if we actually went over there and just rebuilt a whole new community. So I'm certain it was a lot easier for those who came right after us. But we started from scratch. But we made the best of it. It was a struggle. It was a challenge. I recall, and this is what I wrote in my first book, Scarred but Not Broken. I recall several missed times. One in particular was, it was a morning of work, detail. And we all normally go out, we get our breakfast, and we sit by this wall. It was a cement-like wall. We would sit there and eat our breakfast. But on that particular morning, no one sat at that wall. Everybody went on to work, started walking down the road. I was the last one out that tent. And I too normally sit at that wall. But that morning I didn't sit at the wall. And I was running late for work too. And do you know what happened? Soon as I came out that tent and started walking down the road towards my work area, a rocket hit that tent. An RPG hit the tent. It put a hole in that tent that I just left out of. It put a huge hole in that cement wall that we normally sit right there. and lean back on while we're eating our breakfast. God spared our lives that day. He spared my life that day. Hmm. Yeah. But I also remember when we first arrived into the city of Iraq, we actually went with inexperienced leaders. I can truly and feel comfortable saying that because the commander never went to war. He was a newbie, never been to war, but yet he was given orders on which direction to go. He would not listen to the senior NCOs, the many senior NCOs who had been to Desert Storm. So they had experience. But we find that even in the civilian sector too. Just because someone has a title, they believe that they are fit to call the shots. Not so. Because I don't care how much or how many degrees you have. You may have the book smarts, but you don't have the other hands-on experience, shall I say. And that is what this commander had lacked. He almost caused his entire unit to be, shall I say, in a nice way, blown to wherever. We were supposed to turn a certain direction. Oh, this commander wanted us to turn that way. It was the wrong direction. God was watching us that day too. Here we are, an entire U.S. oh, just mm. We traveling in a city, an unknown city, a foreign city. You see all these Iraqis coming out. They want to know what's going on. Yet we have our weapons drawn, locked and loaded, ready to go. I could hear and feel my heart beating so fast because I was afraid. I was afraid. The first thing that was going through my mind was, am I going to see my children again? Are my children going to have to come to my funeral when my body gets shipped back to the States? Or because of this one commander who wanted to show and prove he knew what he was doing when he really wasn't. He really did not know what he was doing. Neither, again, has he ever been to war. But he had so much pride that he did not want to listen to the senior NCOs, the E6, the E7s, who had already been to war before. If I had to pick and choose all over again to go to war with those senior NCOs and that commander, trust me, hands down, would be with the senior NCOs. Hmm. God was watching us that day because we could have rolled over an IED. The Iraqis came all out of their homes, their stores, and markets, coming out to the street. Here you have all of these huge Humvees and oh God, I'm getting a brain cramp because I don't even remember but we had a lot of LTVs. Those are called different military trucks, and so many others. Trotting down their neighborhood, their little small streets that was so narrow. And I'm looking at there's this one little particular Iraqi little boy I saw. He caught my eye as I was sitting in the back of the Humvee. Yeah, sitting back in a Humvee with my weapon drawn. And I was praying, Lord, don't let me have to shoot this little kid. But if I have to do what I have to do. I didn't know if that child had any IEDs on them. I didn't know if that child had any type of bombs on them. But I was ready to do what I had to do in order to save me, to get back home to my children, and to save my soldiers, whoever was with me. Hmm. To make a long story short about my experience in Iraq, coming home again and attending and pursuing a graduate degree was not easy. That particular professor, because she had a son over there, she wanted me to explain to the class what was going on over there. I felt as though I was placed on a spot. Should I lie or should I tell the truth? I ended up telling the truth. Did she like the truth? Of course not. Of course not. She didn't like the truth. Because she started off saying, "Oh, my boy is over there," and he said, "We're doing a great job, and and he's happy to be part of history and so forth." And she said, "And Yolanda, can you tell the class your perspective?" Hmm. Hmm. I told her that they chose selective people to be in front of the cameras, and her son was probably one of them. We're not doing a good job over there. Of course, she didn't want to hear that. We didn't. We weren't doing a good job over there. We had many very incompetent leaders over there. And I'm certain this is not the first time that some of you probably heard that, but there were very many, several, what should I say, incompetent leaders. Leaders that's never been to war. They only had titles, ranks, bars on their shirts. So they were supposed to be important. They was just there so that they can get another stripe on their shirt, on their collar. That was all. Were they concerned about the soldiers over there? No, of course not. Mm-mm. They were more concerned about their resume to show they commanded a unit during war. That's all it was. I recall being very helpful to a few soldiers, two in particular. Uh, hmm, to say that in spite of, or shall I say, in spite of being in a country where you don't belong, you shouldn't have been, and your life could be taken at any given point in time, that alone was enough. But, excuse me, my lips are dry. But to be amongst other individuals that you're supposed to trust with your life, and they're supposed to and they're supposed to trust you with theirs. That was a wake up call. During this time, it was more important for our military force to be strong, look strong, be strong. needing a certain amount of bodies to be deployed at that time was more important. It didn't matter the background, a person's lifestyle, or a person's status. It didn't matter. I actually thought that that announcement that was made to our country, part of me had, well, I had mixed emotions for announcements such as that to invite any and everyone into our military forces to help and take down some terrorists, a leader. I had mixed emotions. But the caveat to that was you join our forces. And if you're not a United States citizen, you will be soon after. Fast forward. If you want to read anything or know a whole lot of what took place, you can, hey, my books is on Amazon, what, any place online where you can purchase books. I believe there are some that are through what's that? Barnes and Nobles, online Barnes and Nobles, or you can just go inside the Barnes and Noble store and go to the back and put in your request for that book. You can get it at what? Alabrin.com. You can get it at Angus.com, BetterWorldBook.com, what? Bookfinder, A Books, Thrift Books, Blurb.com, Books a Million. Yes, that book is all over the place. Although it took me 6 years after I returned from Iraq to actually write it, because I couldn't sit down long enough to write it without being angry and start crying. I had to wait. But yeah. But anyway, so we had a full military force. Was it good at the time? Did it stay good? No. Why? Because many of our female soldiers were being raped. Yes, for those of you who didn't know. Yes, walking to the shower trailers, female will be bear hugged, bear hugged. When you bear hug someone tight enough, they pass out. When they would come to, they would be laying there raped, naked. Word got around to the high individuals, shall I say, about what was going on to our female soldiers. Announcement went out. From now on, 2 females go at a time to the shower to take their showers. I guess they thought that was going to stop it, right? It didn't. Now you have 2 females being bear hugged and raped. Another announcement came out. From now on, You female soldiers will take you a male soldier to stand outside the shower stall while you take a shower. Did that work? Sure, it worked. I know it worked for me. I had a male, one of my male soldiers always standing out there when I was taking a shower, whether it was my battle buddy who was a male or it was another male soldier. That should not have happened. That should not have happened. To this day, there are still female soldiers who still living with this. You know why? Because they're still in uniform. They're afraid to report it. They're afraid of the repercussions. They're afraid of what would happen to them. Oh, yeah. There have been several female soldiers who were raped. Mm. I remember when I came home, there was a young lady, young girl, well, a young lady. She was 21. I'm not going to mention her name for the respect for the family because I did not get permission to ask the parents could I mention her name. So therefore, I won't mention her name. But this young lady was raped and she was killed. They tortured this young woman so bad that her body was unrecognizable to her own parents. I'm not even going to go into detail what they did to her. No human being should have been tortured like that. Has justice ever came to the family? Mm-mm. Oh. And I came home in 2005, and this is when I heard about that, read it. My parents even had a Facebook on it. Hmm. Hmm. But anyway, I'm going to move on with that because it's depressing me, it's triggering me, and it's making me so angry. So I'm going to move on with that. I had another soldier. He was experiencing, or shall I say, he was subjected to racism. Yeah, racism. He was Mexican, placed in an all-white tent. He had no idea that his tent buddies were racist and would put up swastikas or SWAT stickers, whatever you call them things, up in the tent to intimidate him. He didn't know. You don't expect that, especially with someone you going to war with. He couldn't even trust them. And that's sad. He couldn't trust his own guys in the same tent with him. He couldn't trust the Iraqis. That's a scary feeling. Feeling like you're on an island by yourself. And I'm going to tell you about that island being on the island by yourself. I felt like I was on an island by myself. You know why? Because I helped that soldier. When he came to me and asked me, Sergeant Jones, what do you think I should do? I told him what he should do. Because I had my UCMJ manual, because I came from a legal support unit. At the time, I was in the reserve, so I got activated to an active duty unit. I was attached to what? What is that? First Cav, 82nd Airborne. What is that? Something, Fifth Mountain, 15 Mountain, something Mountain. Yes, we was attached to several units. I gave him the regs, AR regs about racism. And I told him to file a complaint. And he did. Another soldier came to me about 12 midnight because I was assigned to an all male section, what we call platoon. Initially, it was two of us, but the other female had to return back to the States for a family emergency. So I ended up being assigned to an all male platoon by myself. I didn't have a problem with it. I could hold my own. But there was the platoon sergeant in charge of our section was one of those narcissistic, grandiose type of person. When he walks in the room, when he walked into any place, he expected for soldiers to respond to him, acknowledge him. They did. I didn't. Of course, he didn't like that. I didn't care. He later realized that I was going to be a challenge for him because you're not God, okay? You're not God. I know who I served, and I know who I served while I was there in Iraq, and you was not God. Yes, he boasts himself everywhere he went. When he walked in the room, you knew he was there because of his deep, irritating voice. It was very deep, like a baritone type of deep. Everything could be going so great, so great. Also, just getting along, having some downtime after work and, you know, some playing volleyball out there in the sand, some, playing football, some just walking like myself and my battle buddy. We would just walk around. Soon as you heard his voice, it was like, that's how it was. But no one really stepped to him, corrected him. Why? Could it have been because many of them were intimidated? Many of the men were intimidated by him because he was so light by those in higher command. Yeah, rubbing elbows. Quid pro quo. Because he had that connection. So people just pretty much stay out of his way. When he says something, you're supposed to jump. Well, he met his match with me. I recall him asking me so many times, Son John, what's your problem? Look at him. What you mean, what's my problem? It's like you have an attitude. I was saying to myself, boy, go on somewhere. Okay. I knew there was something wrong with him. I knew it. It was that energy that it made the hairs on my back crawled or stand up, shall I say. Fast forward, I later found out just before we left Fort Hood, a female soldier, one rank down from him, one rank up from me, approached me in the barracks the night before we were about to ship out to Iraq. Everybody was out partying and having fun. I didn't. That wasn't my cup of tea. Stayed in my barracks, thinking about what life was going to be at war and leaving my children behind because at the time I was a single parent. I wasn't interested in partying. Just wasn't that time. Anyway, I was standing at my war locker at Fort Hood. She came in and she obliged me with some information. I didn't ask for it, but she confided in me and told me that she was in a relationship, an off and on relationship with that platoon sergeant. And she said, please don't say anything. Some people know about it, some don't. I'm like, ain't none of my business what you do or what he do. So I went about my business. And then when we got to Iraq, no, we were in Kuwait. No, we had already left Kuwait. One evening, it was a weekend night, I believe. I was about to go to bed. It was like 12 something. Iraq time, not US time. And my battle buddy, because I was the only female in my section, I always was allowed to have a area just to me. But my battle buddy, who was an older male soldier who had already been to Desert Storm and all that, so he was well experienced. And I'm great that they placed us together because initially they placed us together thinking that we was going to butt heads because I was strong-willed and he was strong-willed and he had an issue with women, being at war. So, but it turned out we ended up being the best of friends and we're still friends today. But anyway, he was right next door to me. It wasn't a wall that separated us. It was just a tent wall, the vinyl, So when he heard that knock on my front door, um, he asked me, Son Jones, who's knocking at that door? I said, I don't know. I'm about to go to bed. So he said, before you open that door, you need to yell out and ask who it is. I said, okay. So I whispered, I said, hello, who is that? And she whispered, I said, who? And then that's when I yelled back to him and I told him who it was. And he was like, well, what's she doing coming over here? What she want? I said, I don't know. Opened the door, locked it back. And when she walked in, even though there was not much light, you could see, and she's darker than me, almost not quite, but just a little bit lighter. You could see the bruise that was on her face. It was a bruise. And I asked her, I said, so and so, what happened? She started crying and she told me. I said, why? She said, because I was trying to break off the relationship with him. I told him I didn't want to do it no more. And he told me that if he couldn't have me, no one could have me. I was like, really? She's like, yeah. I said, okay. She said, please, please don't say nothing to him. Please don't say nothing to him. And don't tell nobody. I said, okay, I won't. I won't. I said, so what you gonna do? She said, I don't know. I don't know. Because he does a lot for me and my kids. I said, okay, okay. Mind you, they both were married. Even though they were having issues within their marriage and separated. And see, that's what I don't get. That's what I don't get. More so with the men. I've met so many men who are separated from their wives, but they still want to have other relationships outside of marriage. You're still married. You're still married. Anyway, so the next day we said our goodbyes to our family and so forth. My son took it very hard. He was 18. And I thought, if anything, that my daughter would take it hard, but my son really took it hard. My children at the time was 14 and 18, and we had always been so close, because it was all about us once I left their father, and we had to go from shelter to shelter. Uh, so we became so close. So, and to pour salt on an open wound, I received my deployment orders on my son's 18th birthday. That made it even harder for him and me. But as I loaded that bus, I looked back and I saw my uncle and my father holding my son up. My son could not even stand up straight. He was crying so much because he did not want to see me go. My daughter was like, bye, Mom, bye, Mom. It didn't hit her as hard as it hit my son. But anyway, that was not a good sight that I wanted to see. It was hard. It was really hard. I didn't want to leave my children. But had I not, I would probably be serving time now at Fort Leavenworth for AWOLing or being a deserter. I had to do what I had to do. I signed on the line. But fast forward. I know you getting tired of me saying fast forward, but I don't want to have to sit here and tell you everything when you can read it in the book. Okay? But anyway, we arrived to Kuwait, and I'm thinking, wow, if this is war, I could do war. They had Burger King, they had Subway, they had Arby's. So I'm like, this ain't nothing but a piece of cake. I could do this. That was just a stopping point for us to retrieve everything that we needed actually to go to war, like 240 rounds of ammo, magazine strap, breastplates, everything. That's what that was. Just a stopping point. We stayed there. I would say, I can't remember. It's been so long. I would say about 3 months. It seemed like we were packing up and moving every 3 months, basically. And when we left Kuwait, well, when we were told, all right, everybody, it's time to load up. I'm like, load up? Wait, where we going now? I like where we at. But that wasn't our place to stay. So we ended up loading up and we ended up going to our first place. And our first place was Taji, Iraq. But anyway, fast forward. I'm trying to make it as short and quick as possible. This platoon sergeant made his section, my section, go through hockey sticks. I'm saying hockey sticks instead of saying the actual cuss word. I'm saying hockey sticks. Because while everyone else after work were playing, listening to music, going to watch movies, all of that good stuff. He had us going to the gym. He said he wanted us to stay in shape. Who the heck stays in shape when you're going to war? That's how much he wasn't that bright. But we had to do it. And while he's in there doing all of his, grandiose, he want to be seen. Then he's gonna say, I better see y'all doing something. Y'all better be working out. I went over in the corner and was just trying to do some. I was gonna break no sweat. Wow. Who gets in shape? Are you in war? Anyway, then he would come over there and, hey, son, Jones. Look at him. You really don't like me, do you? No, I don't. So that continued on while I was there because he knew I didn't like him. He knew, I don't really believe he knew that I knew his secret. That was his mistake because he intentionally, several times, put me on a spot and made the males in my section turn against me. Made them turn against me. That's what I said in the beginning of this recording. I felt like I was an island by myself. But that wasn't the only time I felt like an island by myself. But anyway, he turned his responsibilities over to another NCO who was one rank higher than me. And because I never was in on what was going on because it seems as if they did not communicate with me. A lot of times I was left out of the loop intentionally. So when we had a meeting with our entire session, he asked, well, son Jones, where's your such and such? I forgot what it was. I think it was a list of all of our belongings that we were supposed to report or something. I don't know. Again, I was left out the loop, so I didn't know what was going on. And he tried to reprimand me and try to put me on a spot in front of, the rest of the guys. And I said, well, I didn't know. He said, so when did you plan on giving it to me or something? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Then he asked me, well, you need to gather up such and such, and you need to give it to Sergeant so and so, and I want it back. And so I was like, He said, do you have a problem? And I guess at that point he had become so tired of my short responses to him. Somebody must have said something to him that I was being disrespectful or insubordinate or whatever. So he instructed, or should I say, he ordered the entire section to clear the room. However, by military standards, you don't have everyone clear a room without that soldier having someone there beside them as a witness. So my battle buddy was there, thank God. And this platoon sergeant tried to break me down. He said a lot of nothing, basically. And then he said, I'm writing you up. I don't need blase, 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 da, 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 da. I said, okay. So when he finished writing up the paper, because he wanted to reprimand me, well, he thought, I stayed quiet. When he gave me the paper and said, before you sign, is there anything you would like to add to it? I said, oh, yes, I do. I said, but I'm going to need more paper than that. He said, how much more? I said, at least five to 10 pages. And he looked at me like, I said, yes, I need at least 5 or 10 more pages. He didn't know what I was going to write. Again, he didn't even know that I knew his secret. So when he came back with the paper, well, while he was gone, my battle buddy was like, what's going on? What's going on? I didn't even tell my battle buddy. But I used all them paper that I asked for. And then when I finished, I signed and I gave it back to him. He sat there and he read it. And when he saw his name being mentioned and what was being reported, he looked up at me and I just sat there. He said, you can be dismissed. I said, okay, thank you. And my battle buddy came with me. And my battle buddy was like, well, what did you write? I told my battle buddy what I wrote. Oh, and he was like, what? You wrote that? I sure did. Now what are you gonna do? So now he knows, the platoon sergeant. He's aware. I know your secret. Don't mess with me. So from that point on, he was nice. He didn't bother me. He thought I was gonna let it go. Wrong answer. Because see, now you triggered me. The night she came and told me what you did and what I saw with my own eyes, what you did. And then you're going to try to isolate me from my own soldiers, or should I say the soldiers in my section. You're going to isolate me now. You thought I forgot. I didn't. So what I did with that information, I believe I did not eat lunch. I told my battle, but I had somewhere to go. You can tell the Lord was with me the whole time I was in Iraq because I walked a lot of places and I drove back and forth on very dangerous roads by myself. That right there was not my doing, but I'll get to that. So while everyone else was going to lunch, I took a walk to First Cav Division. They weren't too far away. I would say they was about a mile and a half, 2 miles away that I walked by myself. I wanted to speak to the chaplain. That's what I said. I want to speak to the chaplain. I went inside and I shared with the chaplain what this female soldier shared with me. Before I could reach back to my command post, word had already got there to my commander, my first sergeant, and all the other senior NCOs and sergeant majors. That's how fast. So they must have, okay. Soon as I arrived back, a soldier ran to me, Sergeant Jones. You are wanted at the top. The top is what they call where all the senior NCOs and officers stayed and worked out of. I said, why? He was like, I don't know, but you're wanted, up at the top. I said, okay. Walked down there. I was by myself. My battle wasn't with me. I walked on down there. I didn't take any female with me or anything. I walked in. I could feel the tension in the air, put it like that. I'm trying to get a visual of who, I know who was there, but I could see their faces. Everyone that was in that room. It was at least 5, 6, maybe 7 men in that room. And I'm the only female. I was berated. I was ostracized. The commander and the first sergeant got up in my face. When I say they got up in my face, they got up in my face that if they had just moved their head just a little bit, they would have been kissing my nose or my lips. That's how close they were. Yelling and screaming in my face, spitting in my face, all of it. What did I do? And every time I moved my head, I got screamed at and yelled at and all that stuff. They didn't like it. What they wanted to do was to break me, see me cry. And then I looked over and I saw some of the other senior NCOs who I had no problems with, but they stood back and I could see their faces like as though they wanted to intervene and help me, but they knew that they couldn't because this first sergeant and this commander were in charge. Everybody was afraid of them. I guess I just wasn't. I guess I was. I'm gonna say I felt like I was in Twilight because everyone had a fear with senior ranking officials, and I guess reality had hit me that this a possibility. I'm going home in a body bag, so it doesn't matter what you do to me. I don't care. I became numb. I didn't care. You yelling at me didn't make me cry. I wasn't afraid of you. I didn't care. They saw that. Now, I made things worse because they couldn't break me. They were being challenged. They didn't like the fact I took some very important information, intel as we called it, and ran with it and took it and shared it with the appropriate personnel. That's what I did. I'm not like a lot of these soldiers who just because they have on a uniform and they see that their higher ranking official does something illegal, wrong, they're going to stand back and go along with it. I'm not being no accomplice to anything. Okay? I'm not being no accomplice to anything. Okay? You do the crime, you do the time. I'm not sharing that with you. But yeah, a lot of them knew what was going on, but they didn't say anything because they was afraid of their military career. Again, I didn't care about my military career. I cared about my children. So, because they was upset that I shared that information about their number one person, their number one senior NCO, they were upset. So what did they do? You know what they did? They intentionally, purposely placed me on dangerous, very dangerous convoys. That wasn't my job. That wasn't my MOS. But they wanted to scare me. They wanted something to happen to me, but it didn't. You know why? Because I had God watching me. Yeah, I had to. They ordered me several times. I would say at least 2 or 3 times. No, it was 2 times. Driving back and forth, 5 mile drive, I believe it was. Nothing but deserted roads, nothing but sand. A female, mind you, a unit was already ambushed before we even arrived there. 2 females, a black one and a white one, were kidnapped. Okay? But yet and still, they make me go on and travel on a road by myself, driving a Humvee to and from the Class 9 warehouses. The Class 9 warehouses were places where military personnel took communication radios, weapons, things of that nature to be repaired. I should not have been on the roads by myself. That last time, see, the insurgents weren't dumb. They saw me come down that road the first time. So what did they do? They were there because they knew I was coming again. They learned my time. They learned the day. They learned my route. What did they do? They came out in the road to block me. They came out in the road to block me and stood there because they knew a female was coming down that road. They already had intentions of what they wanted to do. What did I do? I gunned it. When I say I gunned it, and ran on through. They had to just spread the Red Sea, so to speak. I wasn't stopping. I said, today is not going to be that day. You ain't taking me down like you took them 2 girls down. You're not taking me down. I said, I will go fighting and shooting up. At that time, before I gunned it, I had my weapon on auto. I had a full magazine in it, 40 rounds. I was gunning it and I was ready. And I was angry at the same time because they put my life in danger. I'm not talking about the insurgents. I'm talking about those commander and that first sergeant put my life in danger because of their ego, trying to protect one of their own who they knew was having an adulterous relationship and was beating on her. But they was angry at me because I took it outside to another unit who took care of it, who eventually removed that platoon sergeant out of theater. They were mad at me. They did so much to break me. They did so much to break me. But each time God was there. Every time God was there. What you have planned for me, God has something better. mm, mm, mm. That wasn't it. It wasn't enough. Because when I arrived there that second time to the warehouse, this time a colonel questioned me Sergeant, trying to think of the name that they called it. Shotgun. Where's your assistant or something to that effect? Meaning, I was supposed to have somebody ride with me. Being an NCO, being a female on that empty road at war, I was supposed to hire an assistant. They didn't want my assistant to go with me. They wanted me to go by myself because they wanted something to happen to me. But it didn't. So anyway, the coroner questioned me. He asked, Sergeant, I know you didn't come down here by yourself. I said, yes, I did, sir. This is my second time coming by myself, sir. He said, is that so? I said, yes, sir. He said, were you given orders to come down here by yourself? I said, yes, sir. He said, by whom? And I told him. I said, my first sergeant and my commander. They didn't want anyone to come with me. Before I arrived back, well, first of all, they didn't allow me to go back by myself. They had someone else to accompany me back. I believe I had someone to follow behind me or something like that, but he did say, don't come back down here by yourself again. I said, okay. Of course, word got back to the first sergeant commander. They was upset about that because they sent me out there and they got chewed out about that too. Basically, I was just making their life a living hockey sticks. Because they was doing stuff they had no business doing. They thought they was going to get away with it. And they thought somebody like me was not going to make a fuss about it or challenge them. That wasn't enough. By the time I arrived back, by this time the commander and the first sergeant ordered the entire battalion, not the sections, not the individual platoons, the entire battalion, 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 not to associate with me. Yeah, not to associate with me. And they threaten the soldiers. If I catch any of you talking or associating with Sergeant Jones, you're going to get an Article 15. That's how they thought their power was the shiznick. Okay? I didn't have a problem with it. I went on about my job duties. Fast forward, that wasn't enough because that didn't break me. They tried another route. They reassigned me to another company. Yes, another company that was there. I think they was out of Kentucky or Kansas or somewhere like that. I was assigned to that company. Now, mind you, at this time, I had already shaved my head. I believe I shaved my head when we was in Kuwait before we came to the war zone. I shaved my head because my male soldiers, I felt as though I wasn't receiving the respect from privates and specialists and, a lot of lower ranking soldiers. I felt like I wasn't receiving any respect from them when I would tell them or delegate something to them to do. So I said, apparently they must see me just as a female, one of them prissy little females. I'm like, okay. So what I did, I asked one of my soldiers, well, one of the soldiers who was also a sergeant like me. I went over to him while just before we came to theater, and I asked him. I said, "So and so and so, I know you are the barber of the company." I said, "I need you to cut my hair." Okay. He said, "Okay, Sergeant Jones." Okay. So I sat down, and he started just, and I'm like, I still feel hair. It felt more like an afro, if anything, like a little afro. I said, "So, you didn't even cut it." He said, "Son Jones, I did cut it. See?" And he showed me the mirror. I said, "No, I want you to shave it. You see how yours look? That's how I want mine." He said, "No, Son Jones, no, don't do that. She want your hair shaved for." I says, "Please, it's my hair. I want to shave." He shaved it. So when it was time for me to walk out into formation, all eyes just stopped and looked. Mind you, I had just got through watching G.I. Jane before we got deployed to Iraq too. So that gave me the, ugh, that's right, I'm gonna shave my hair, ain't nothing but hair. But yeah, that's what I did. And from that point on, I received respect from the male soldiers. Lots of respect. But anyway, going back to that other unit that I was reassigned to, that unit not only were you can I don't even recall one of us, a minority, being attached to that unit. I truly believe, because I don't remember, and I'm not saying it to sound mean, or there was not a black person assigned to that unit, honestly. And it seemed like it was all a male unit, if I remember correctly, because I don't really recall seeing any females. That was, or unless the females weren't working in that area, because I was always, because my MOS was working in the motor pool, so I worked always around and with men and vehicles. So, or in like the connoissances, taking in and taking in orders for vehicles and things of that nature. Anyway, fast forward. These individuals, because I had a shaved head, they would make racist remarks about me, my body, and then even try to rub their penises up against the backside of mine when they would try to squeeze through, trying to get by, when they had all that room. So again, I went off on them, and I was ready to fight. I'm sorry. I was ready to fight, get an Article 15, send me back home. I don't care. But I'm ready to fight. You're not gonna rub your body parts on me, okay? We're not doing that. And they thought it was a joke. Then they started calling me a monkey, and how, why would I shave my head? Calling me a potato head, a black potato head, all that. The name calling, I don't care. Call me whatever you want to call me, but don't put your body parts on me. You know what I'm saying? Don't do that, because that's non-consensual. I ain't giving you any permission to rub your body parts on me. And they did it every day. And I got so angry and so angry. And I'm always arguing, I'm always fighting until they end up calling in their senior commander. Is there a problem? You know there's a problem with your boys. Come on. Here I'm a black female, shaved head, with a nice body, and they think that I'm some little toy, sex toy. Don't do that to me. Don't do that. Well, I'll talk to them. I'll talk to them. Okay. Yeah, okay. So when it was time for me to end my work shift, I confided in the guys, the soldiers that was in my platoon, what I was subjected to, being sexually exploited, you might as well say. So each one would, well, not each one, but some of them would come by in the early morning hours just to check up on me, and they did that regularly. And of course, those guys did not like it because my comrades was coming to check up on me because I told them what was going on, and all of a sudden they was getting upset because they weren't able to have full access to me no more. So they made a complaint to that commander, and the commander went to my commander and complained. That's how they was able to get my guys back away, and they had me all to themselves again. Uh, that went on for a while. Like every day I had to get away from me, stop touching me. All that. And they gonna laugh. It wasn't funny. I'm not your sex toy. If that wasn't enough, one of the first sergeant's close female sergeants was his little snitch. Yeah, was his little snitch. So he had her to watch my every move, everything I did. She was to report back to him, and she did, because I was going to beat her behind. I'm sorry, I'm just telling the truth of what happened over there. I had to fight, I had to protect myself. Instead of worrying and fighting and protecting myself from the insurgents, I was fighting and trying to protect myself from my own colleagues, females and males. One day I got off from working with them idiots, them nasty. Mm, I just felt filthy at the end of the day. Every day when I had to go over there to work with them, I wasn't allowed to work with my own company because that was the first sergeant and the commander's way of isolating me from everybody, even my own battle buddy who was there, who was supposed to be protecting me. Anyway, I went back to my tent at the end of my work shift. I was hungry. I walked in, it's a female tent, split down the middle. You got a walkway. You got females on one side of the tent. You got other females on the other side of the tent. And no matter where we packed up and moved to, whatever location in Iraq we moved to, whether it was Taji, whether it was Fob Duke or Strike, wherever we moved to, I always set up my area as if I was home. It didn't look like I was at war. I always set it up so I can have that home feeling. I had a microwave. I had the guys found a wooden bench, um, and they turned it into a bed for me because I was suffering from a lot of back issues and I couldn't sleep on the actual uh, army cot because my back would sink like that if I laid on my stomach. I mean, if I laid on my stomach, my lower back would sink in and it would really hurt. So I was able to lay on that huge. It looked like a actual queen size, but it was a square wooden bench that they found. Apparently, the another platoon or so probably used it as a table. Well, I turned it into a bed because I was able to buy these thick comforters. So that was like my padding, and I placed that on the top, and so I had a nice, very hard bed. Anyway, fast forward. walked in to try to warm me up. I believe I was trying to warm me up that instant mac and cheese. Well, all you gotta do is pop it up and put it in the microwave. I'm looking, I'm looking all over the tent. I'm like, well, did somebody come in here and take my microwave? Now we got thieves in here now. I looked across the room. Mind you, the first sergeant's snitch and her little clique, they were white. And I said, I know this woman did not walk over here, unplug my microwave, and take it over there. And she has food in it right now, warming it up. I said, no, she did not do this. She must got me all twisted. Really? So I walked over there. I said, so and so, this is my microwave. Yes. Right now I have some food in there. You do. I see. I opened it up. I took the food out. I threw it on the floor. I closed my microwave, unplugged it, carried it back over to my area where it was. You didn't get permission to unplug my microwave? Who do you think you are? Oh, I forgot. You're the first sergeant's snitch, the right hand that does everything for him. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. This is my property and you did not ask for it. So I plugged it back in, and she was storming. I know you didn't do blah, blah, blah. She was trying to come over there and take my microwave. I said, woman, you don't come over here. Don't come with the type of day I had today. Don't come over here. And and she was upset. She stormed. I'm gonna go to the first sergeant. I said, go tell him. Go tell him. And then I recall she said something to me. I forgot what it was. She said something to me that was disrespectful or something she said. When she said that, I ran over there to try to launch at her. And there was another female. She was an E4 specialist, but she was big. And everybody, the males, she can beat the guys in basketball. She can beat the guys in any sports. And the females loved her. Well, when I went to go try to launch at that female who said something to me, she said something to me I didn't like. When I went to launch at her, the other female went and picked me up and had my feet just dangling, just like this. I said, no, put me down. Put me down. She said, no, Sergeant Jones. No, Sergeant Jones. You're going to mess up your military career. Don't do that. She ain't worth it. She ain't worth it. I said, okay, fine. Fine. So I went back over to my area. Next thing I know, Sergeant Jones, you are needed at the top. First Sergeant wants you. Like, dang, they really trying to really mess with my mind. What are they doing to me? So, walk down there again by myself. Once again, this time it wasn't all the rest of the senior NCOs and everything and the sergeant majors. It was just the first sergeant and the commander who did not know anything. Only thing he had was book smart. That's why he was a lieutenant. But anyway, they both took turns like they did before in my face. So you start in trouble now, mind you, I haven't started trouble with nobody. This entire video, I haven't started trouble with anybody. You haven't heard me say I started trouble with anybody. Okay? They were trying to make my life a living hockey sticks. That's all it was. And when they saw that I wasn't breaking, it just made them more and more and more angry. That's all it was. I stayed to myself did my job and just wanted people to leave me the hockey sticks alone. That's all. That's all I wanted. But no, they kept challenging me and kept challenging me. It got to the point where they isolated me so much. I started thinking about my childhood and how I was isolated even then, and being mistreated, and how my paternal family showed favoritism between me and my sister. So much was going on, and then I started thinking about um, my domestic violence situation back at home, and I started thinking about the senior NCO who came to my tent and told me about what happened. I started thinking about how the first sergeant, the sergeant major, and everybody placed me deliberately, intentionally on a convoy. I started thinking about having to travel on the road of Iraq by myself and all of that stuff. I started thinking about just so much of what was going on. I started thinking about my children. I started thinking about every time I had wrote to my son never responded to my letters. Every time I went down to the communication tower to try to make a phone call to him, he never wanted to answer the phone. Even though he was at the house, my parents would say he didn't want to come to the phone. So I felt, once again, alone, like I did when I was a child. I felt alone. I felt like, you know what? Nobody loved me no more. Nobody loved me. Nobody cares. I got into a very dark place. Very dark place. You talking about me being numb, or shall I say I mentioned about being numb in the beginning? I really became numb. I really became numb. All I saw was red, not red people. There may have been red on them that I saw. But my heart was hurting. It had already broken. I did not know if I was going to survive in Iraq. Anything can happen. I could walk on the IED. I could get hit by an RPG. I don't know. All I knew was that I love my children, and I hope that and I was praying that they was doing well. I didn't care if I even survived anymore. Wait a minute. And although we always had to take cover and be at weapon ready, because we was always being shot at, I never knew if something was going to land on me, if I was going to get shot, or if I'm going to have to shoot somebody. But we always had to take cover. We always had to take cover. We always had to take cover. I'm going to try to get through this. I'm going to try to get through this and sharing this story. But yeah, I became numb. I was walking in it was as if I had tunnel vision. Just tunnel vision. I didn't see nothing on the side. I didn't see nothing on the other side. And I didn't worry about what was behind me. I had tunnel vision. It seemed as though I had blocked everything that was going on around me. I blocked it out. I didn't hear anything else. It seemed as if I had lost my hearing. Everything was gone. All I was listening to or hearing was what was going up in here. You're not good. You're not good enough. Look at that. Your childhood was that way. You went through, what you went through, with your kids' dad, domestic violence, and now you're coming here and people mistreating you. Nobody wants you around. Nobody wants you around. Nobody care about you. Wow, that is what was going on up in my head. Because all my life, seemed like that's what's going on. You're not good enough. Nobody wants you. That's all I kept thinking about. So at this point, I didn't care if I died. If anything, I wanted to die. I didn't care anymore. I started walking towards the top. Remember in the beginning, I said the top is where the senior NCOs and the commanders were, right? I started walking towards the top. I knew what my mind was telling me that I wanted to do. It was as if I was in trance. I didn't, yeah. Well, while we were there, I always kept a full 40 round magazine in my weapon. Always. But at this time, on this day, I was prepared to die. I had a full 40 round magazine. I had 200 and something rounds on my body, on my breastplate, in my cargo pockets. I had my weapon on auto, and I started to walk towards the top. It was as if I had really sank in a very, very dark place. And there was no noise around me. It was complete silence, as if I was somewhere by myself, no one else around but that top that I was looking at, and I was heading towards it. I knew what I wanted to do because my mind was telling me, they think very little of you. Go to that top, lock and load, and spray them all out. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's what my mind wanted me to do. And that's why I was headed to that top. hmm Again, God was there because I ended up passing my battle buddy's tent. Because it seemed like everybody, I'm serious, everybody had deserted and gone. Was nobody out usually. Usually folks are out, at least sitting outside the tent, combing hair, playing, doing dice, what. Everybody, for some reason on this particular day, it was deserted. But my battle buddy walked out of his tent and I walked right past him. He said, "Hi, Sergeant Jones." I didn't say anything. I just kept walking. He said, "No, Sergeant Jones, Sergeant Jones." He kept calling me. And I turned around like as if I'm serious, as if I was a robot. And I looked at him. He said, I need you to come here. You got that look in your eye. I need you to come here, please, Sandra. I said, no, 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 no. I gotta go to the top. He said, what? He said, "What you going to the top for?" I said, "I don't know, but I gotta go to the top." He said, "No, Sanjo, no, no, you gotta come here. Stay here with me. I need to talk to you." I said, "Okay." And I sat there and I listened to him. He said, "Sanjo, you got that eye. You got that eye. You got that look in your eye. I've seen many soldiers have before they're about to do something. I've seen it in soldiers when I went to Desert Storm." He said, "No, whatever you're about to do, whatever you're thinking to do, don't do it, please. Because then I will have to explain to your parents when your body is in a body bag being shipped back home, what happened? And I would have to explain to them that I would have had to kill you, take you out in order to protect everyone else and at the top. And while he was listening to me, I heard him, but I didn't hear him. I wasn't listening. I just heard him, but I wasn't listening. He said, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" And I said, "I gotta go to the top." That's all my mind and my mouth kept saying. I needed to get to the top. And then that's when he told me, "You remember when we was back at Fort Hood, I spoke to your father. Well, your father pulled me to the side and he said, 'Whatever you do, protect my daughter. Please protect my daughter.'" I didn't know that they had that conversation. But they had that conversation. So my battle buddy told me, he said, "I got to bring you back home alive. Please don't do what you're about to do." He said, "What I want you to do, just before you get down there to the top, at the end of this path, I want you to go inside there. That's the combat relief tent. They'll help you. They'll give you the help that you need. But before you go in, or before you head that way, I need to take your weapon." I said, "No, no, no, I got it, I got it." He said, "No, I got to take your weapon, Sergeant Jones. It'll be safe with me." Mm, wait a minute. Uh, So he said, "Let me go home and take your weapon." Okay. I went ahead, put it back on lock, took it off of me, and I handed it to him. He said, "Now go on down there. Go inside combat relief. They'll help you." Soon as I started walking, I was still numb, shall I say. I was still numb, didn't shed a tear. I still felt like I was just in a zone. I did as he instructed. But because when you at war, you can't be walking around without your weapon. But this was a certain situation that he needed to confiscate my weapon from me. I walked down that path and I walked inside combat relief. They welcomed me and I stood there. I couldn't even move. My legs had froze. And they said, "We'll take care of you." And when they said that, they wanted me to come down here and see you guys. They said, "Okay, well, that was a good thing that your battle boy took your weapon from you." Within 30 minutes, if not that, I was about 20 minutes, they had already placed me on a Chinook. The Chinook is that long looking military um, plane. I call it a plane, but it's that long military that got the two things that whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah, that. They put me on a Chinook and they took me to Babylon. Babylon is where they took or they sent soldiers who had a mental breakdown or just some type of mental challenging of some sort. Well, that's what it sent me because I didn't realize I had actually had a mental break because of so much that was coming at me. And I was ready to end their lives, and I was ready to end mine. But my battle buddy was there. Once again, God aligned the right person, the right people in my life. I always joke and say I have 9 lives. God is always there. Even when I feel as though I believe that He's not there, or that, like when I was going through my domestic violence, I was like, God, where are you? Why are you allowing me to go through all of this? But if you want to know more what took place, because there was a lot of pieces I did leave out, you can actually order that book. It's called Scar But Not Broken. It's a white book. You can either get it through ebooks, you can get it through hardcover, soft cover. It's a white book with black teardrops. Scar But Not Broken by Yolanda Jones. You can get it on any online store. You can go inside Barnes and Noble and purchase it, and when it comes in, they'll notify you, and they'll send it to your home address, or they will ask you to come pick it up. But I share that to cover about PTSD. I was diagnosed right there in theater while I was at war. Once normally in Babylon, when they send a soldier away to regroup, you only there 3 days. My situation was so severe. I was there for 2 weeks. No, yeah, about 2 weeks. Yeah, about a week and a half. Yep, I was there almost 2 weeks. That's how severe my mental illness was. When I returned, it was as if nothing had ever happened. I kid you not. I'm serious. It felt like I was in Twilight, because when I came back, everyone was so loving and so embracing and so welcoming. Even the colonel walked up to me and said, Sergeant Jones, I never met this particular colonel, but the colonel walked up to me and said, Sergeant Jones, I'm glad you're back. Welcome back. I mean, I had so much love flowing. I mean, like, did I just leave the same place that I was about to, Yeah. Because word got around what happened that led up to my mental break. So everyone came together. Even those male soldiers had my back. It was a beautiful thing. So, but when I came home, it was a big adjustment. It was a big adjustment. So, for all of you, whether you were in the military or whether you were not in the military, but you suffered some form of child abuse or rape or sexual trafficking or anything, you have PTSD for certain, because you experience trauma, and that's what trauma is. Please get help. Please get help. If you're military, please go to the VA. Please go to the VA. Reach out to me if you need to ask some questions about what steps you need to take to apply for service connection. Okay? Reach out to me. And I'll lead you in the right direction. And if I don't know the answer, you can rest assured I have colleagues that I can reach out to and ask them for their assistance. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed Real Talk with Yolanda. It was getting kind of touch and go there for a minute, but I held it strong. I just needed to get through and take a few seconds, a few minutes just to get through. But I'm glad I was able to get through and share at least that part of my story of how PTSD can form. Again, I did not realize I suffered from PTSD because of my childhood. That wasn't brought to my attention until after I came home from Iraq and I had to share about my life, my childhood, and all of that. And that's when the therapist, said, you suffered some serious childhood trauma. And then to be subjected to domestic violence, and then to go to war and have to be subjected to sexual assaults and being ostracized and berated and all that stuff. Yeah, I suffered a lot of trauma, but I'm still proud of myself for how far I come because I accomplished a lot. And those of you survivors, whether it's domestic violence, sexual trafficking, child abuse, and you survived. And if I can do it, I know many of you can. Okay? It's not going to happen overnight, but you can do it. I know you can. So, and I'm counting on all of you survivors. I know you can do it. I know you can. Okay? And as for my victims who are not yet in that place of moving forward and becoming a survivor, when you're ready, you will. I believe it. I believe it. Okay? When you're ready, you need to make that move when you're ready. Can't nobody tell you when to get out of your domestic violence situation, especially if you have children. And see, that's the problem with society. You have so many opinions out there. Well, if that was me, I would do such and such. If that was me, no, you wouldn't. Especially if you have children. And if you're any good parent, you would think about those children. So don't come saying what you would do if you was in that type of situation because you don't even know what you do. And I'm getting so sick and tired of people saying, well, that could never be me because if any man hit me and blah. Okay, you say that. Have some kids, 2 or 3 kids, okay? And that happened to you. See if you will walk out the door without your kids. So, so those of you who are so opinionated and don't have the appropriate or the correct education about domestic violence or about any type of forms of abuse, until you get educated about it, keep your mouth closed because you don't know anything about it. Especially if you tell somebody, oh, you just need to go. Pack your bags and go. No, you cannot. It's not that easy. It wasn't easy for me because I wasn't about to leave my kids. Well, in the beginning, let me take that back. When we arrived to the first domestic violence shelter, I was tired of running, okay? Because I knew that wherever I went, wherever I had gone, as long as I had our kids with me, I was not going to rest. And he was going to continue to come after me so he can have his children. And I was going to give them up until I spoke to my mother from that domestic violence shelter. And I said, Ma, I don't want to keep doing this. I'm just going to give the kids to him so I don't have to worry about him no more. She said, don't you ever give up your children, because when it's time for you to get them back, you won't get them back. And the courts will not give them back to you. And I listened to that. And I'm glad I listened to my mother. So all of you out there who are tired of running, because he keep coming after you because he want his kids, please don't give your kids up. Please don't give them up. Fight for them kids. Fight for your kids. You will be happy that you did. You will be definitely happy that you did. I know I am, because my children's father ended up turning to crack and coke and all that. Yes. So just imagine if I would have gave my kids up to him. When he ran out of money, what do you think he would have done? He would have put my son out there to, sell drugs, get drugs. And then soon or later, my son would have probably been killed or in prison. Or he probably would have turned my son out for his body, sex. And we ain't going to talk about my daughter because she's a girl. So, of course, if he didn't have his drug, what do you think he would have done? And what type of friends do you think would have been around my daughter if he was raising both of them? She would have ended up getting raped. She would have ended up getting molested. She would have probably even ended up getting turned out. All that stuff. So I did the right thing. So that's why I shared all that with you guys, to let you see what could possibly happen if you give up on your children to the abuser, especially if he's into drugs or alcohol or any type of addiction, gambling. You don't know what could happen with your children. So I'm going to end here. And if I have more to say, I will come back with a continuation about PTSD and MST, which is military sexual trauma. I'll come back with a continuation. But if I don't, I'll come back with a different topic. But until then, you beautiful people, you stay safe, okay? You stay empowered, and you stay blessed.